Dakota on e-ticketing, along with several other states in the mountain region. Um, so working with a lot of states on helping them get e-ticketing up and running for the first time, or giving them refreshers and helping them advance to some of the more advanced features that we offer as you kind of get the e-ticketing under your belt. Uh, Today, we're just going to focus on some basics, making sure everyone has a refresher, feels confident about using the tool out in the field. And for those that might be new, or this might be the first time, or you've only, briefly looked at the solution, this will still be very, very helpful for you as well, too. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen here. And you should be seeing it now. If anyone does not see my screen, just give me a quick holler here. But I kind of want to just touch on exactly what we'll cover here, give you a quick overview, and then we'll jump into the fun stuff. I'll show you guys what everything looks like on my phone here. But first, let's kind of break down what the agenda is going to look like. And then I also want to show you some tools and resources that you can go to later. Later after this call, you might be thinking, shoot, what was Carlos saying about clipboard reports? Or how did he say how to mark waste? Or how do I put the pay items or the contract items in? No worries, like we are going to cover that today. But if that's something that you want to review a little bit later, if you feel like you might have missed something, I'll show you how to go to some of our resources to kind of review that. So you'll see right now that I am at google.com, and I'm just going to head over to e-dot.com. If you don't remember anything from this meeting, remember e-dot.com. So E like a hyphen right here, dot.com. The reason I say that is because this is going to take you to everything that we review today, and a little bit more if you need some help later. So I'm actually going to head over to the Hall Hub University over here. And these are our training videos. So this is going to give us a good agenda of what we're going to cover today, but also gives you kind of a good refresher on what Hall Hub is and what we do as a vendor. We provide a suite of solutions. So everyone that's a stakeholder in a project has an application or a web portal to log in. Agencies, which we'll review today for you all, there's the suppliers, the vendors, and the contractors. So everyone has access to real-time data once a supplier is hooked up and tickets are flowing. So if we jump over to agencies over here, and one thing to quickly note, if you do log into this portal later, it will ask you, if you haven't already, created a password, and you'll use your username will be your email. So, and then one thing to keep in mind is when you set it up, if you made the password different than when you log into the actual application, just remember that you might have used a different password. If you use the same password, then great. But the systems don't talk to each other, so they don't share the username or the password. So what you'll want to focus on if you want to jump in later after this meeting to review some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, you can just head over to the agencies tab right here on the left-hand side. And if you've seen our training videos before, great. We updated them. We have some new catalogs. We broke it up into some more digestible catalogs. Before we had like a long list of all our videos that we offer, but now we kind of broke it up into maybe what you want to focus on, and exactly what we're going to focus on in this training is the inspector app basics. We'll also touch on a little bit of the web portal to show you some of the reporting that's available to you after using the application out in the field. So I'll click right here on the inspectors app basics. And this is going to take us to a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos right here. It'll probably take you 5 minutes or less to go through them if you touch on them later. But this is what we're going to review today. So today we're going to go over the Today page. So when you first log into the application, what you see and what everything means. We'll go over the details of a project. We'll go through the dashboard and show you what data is available to you when you're out in the field marking tickets. We'll show you how to mark tickets delivered. I'll show you how to mark waste, how you can mark tickets rejected, how you can mark a ticket do not pay, and then in addition to that, adding pay codes very easily to a ticket when marking it delivered. I'll also touch base on helping you guys to report issues when you're out in the field, right? Things happen. Maybe a tickets stop flowing in and you don't see any more tickets for that project. Maybe you're seeing a ticket from a different project. Like, what do you do, right? When something goes wrong on the application out in the field or something looks funny. I'm going to walk you through that and what you can do to make sure you're getting some help if you're running into any issues out in the field. That service. This is going to be the pretty much the meat and potatoes of what we're going to cover today. If you guys have questions, feel free to take yourself off mute. Let me know. I'm glad to slow down and stop on a specific area where you guys have questions. You can also put it in the chat box. Josh or Scott, maybe you can help me out if I miss a question in the chat box. Just stop me. This is completely we're completely flexible with this in terms of maybe stopping and going down a slightly different route to answer a question that someone might have. I don't want to kind of give you the cookie cutter overview. So this will be what we touch on, and this will be where you can go later if you feel like you missed something during today's presentation. So with that said, we are going to jump over to my phone right here. I'm sharing my phone screen, so I figured we start here with some of the funner stuff. And let me just expand this here, or actually I can, let's move this guy out of the way. And we'll put this on full screen. And I'll actually just log out quickly. And then, so this is, of course, what the application looks like right here, eDot for inspector. When I tap on that, it's going to take me to enter in my username. And I'll put in my password. Careful if you fat finger it, there is the eyeball right here so you can see what you're typing in. It's hiding it from you because it's my password right now, but we're gonna go ahead and sign in. And I am signed into, let me just make sure which portal I'm in. Yep, so I'm in North Dakota. So I am in the North Dakota portal right now. This is the Today page, right? I know that I'm on the Today page because at the very bottom, I can see these three icons, and this one is highlighted in purple, letting me know that I'm on the Today page. What is the Today page? The Today page is going to let you know which projects are running today, and it'll give you an overview of the tickets, right? So right now we don't see anything on the Today page, which I'm assuming you guys are not running any jobs right now. But what we can see at the very top are these chip filters, right? So this one's highlighted in purple. It's letting me know that we're on the Today page. We have last 4 hours if I slide to the right, last 8 hours, or I can choose a custom one. If I slide over to the left, then I can see like night job, or I can also see yesterday and idle for projects. Let's tap on yesterday. I've seen some projects in there for you guys yesterday. So when you have data flowing to a project, you'll get this project card right here on the Today page. It'll give you an overview of the project number and name. You can see the total. It's broken down by hour right here, and then it has the tonnage on the right-hand side. So just a high-level overview to show you what's going on right here. And then as you have more projects, as you're assigned more projects, this list will continue to grow. And then if you wanted to go and look at projects that haven't been producing any material recently or haven't been doing any paving recently, you can always go to the idle tab right here in the top left-hand corner. And then this will give you a list of all those other projects that you've been assigned to. If for any reason you're not seeing a project, you might not have been assigned to it yet. So just something to check with management. And then as projects are added and your assigned projects, this list is going to grow. So you can use the search button to search by contractor, plant, or projects right here. And then any of these project cards, you can interact with them, which means you can actually click on them, and then it's going to take you to the dashboard page or the project overview page. We're going to go over this in a second. I'm going to hit back right here. Right, so we're still on the idle chip filter. We have a refresh tab up here. We're still on the today page. We can just jump using these filters here at the top to see different projects, right? So now I can go back to yesterday. Who wants to play nice with me? I'll also be using a demo environment too here in a second, just so that I can actually mark tickets delivered without messing anything up in your guys' environment. I just wanted to walk you through a couple of things here. There we go. So now if you want to interact or see more data on the project, it's really easy. You're just going to tap on the project card. Perfect. So now we're at the project card. It's going to load up the ticket feed here. And then what you'll see at the very top here is some project information. It'll show you these bubbles right here. This is kind of the dashboard, gives you an overview of what's going on the project. So this lets you know that there was 8 tickets total. There's also a ticket report that you can go back to. So we'll look at that in a second. And if we slide this to the left, you'll see that there's some other options here. So we have offline mode, how to report an issue, yield, documents. A couple of these bubbles I'll go over for you in a second. But we can see that this has produced 8 tickets in total. Right under that, we have some additional chip filters, right? So it's letting me know that I'm looking at tickets from yesterday. I can tap on this and I can look for tickets in a specific date right here. I can even go back to previous dates for that. If I jump out of that, I have a materials filter. I also have a status filter. So it's something to keep in mind right here. If you want to see all the tickets that are still pending on the project, we can filter by pending tickets. We can look at just delivered tickets. It's really easy. So if I probably put pending, it's going to be 0, right? Everything's been marked for yesterday. But if I go to tickets that were marked delivered, it'll show me tickets that are delivered. And I know that because they have the delivered right here in the green check mark. So just keep in mind that you can use these filters to look at the different statuses of those tickets. And then we can slide over, and this is one that I always like to point out, ticketed time, old to new, just a filter to keep in mind. If for any reason that you do tap on it, you can use these different organizations right here to sort the tickets. Sometimes people don't even know that they put it from old to new, and they really want to see it from new to old. So this is just a good filter. So you don't scroll through the whole list of tickets. You can have the new ones at the very top. Cool. And this ticket has already been marked delivered, but what we can do here in this ticket feed, right, in this list of tickets, we can interact with these tickets by tapping anywhere on the ticket card. So I can tap on it to get more information, but you'll see that it already gives you like the ticket number, the low number, the total, the company. You have material. You can enter in station information by tapping right here. And then if we just tap anywhere on the card, it'll take us to the raw ticket details, right? So this is your guys' data. This is from a project. It looks like with Ames Construction. So you'll see the raw ticket data here when you click on that ticket card, you can see that it shows that it was marked delivered, shows the time, ticket number. And then there is this caret here, which we can tap on that. It'll close the raw ticket data, and then we can easily see the weights. So we have the weight data here. And then same thing, I can just close that caret to keep my screen nice and clean. I can see that it was marked delivered by an inspector. So we have Olivia, date and timestamp, and we have the signature. And then it has latitude and longitude. For this one, it doesn't look like any notes were entered, but I can show you in a second what it looks like in the demo environment, how to enter notes and what the options are when you mark a ticket delivered. So we'll close this caret right here. And then you'll see that there's also a contractor review. So when a supplier gets integrated with HaulHub, they have an option to provide their customers or provide contractors that they work with access to digital tickets. They use an application called JobSlip. So the contractor could be out in the field. They have an application that looks very similar to this one. Theirs is orange, yours is purple. Like I was showing you in the beginning, we provide everybody with access to their own application or web portal. So if they were using it, right, not required, but if they were using it, you would also see them marking tickets delivered and leaving any notes if any notes were left here. So I'll close this caret. And then even though this ticket has been marked delivered, you can still go back in and take some more action on the ticket. So there's some options here at the bottom where it says more actions. So I can go in, if I accidentally marked a ticket delivered, I just fat fingered it, I didn't need it, or I was looking at the wrong ticket, I can go back and mark it pending. I can go back and mark it rejected. If I want to highlight this ticket so that it pops out to me on a report later, I can flag it when I'm going through my reports. So there's a couple options here. You can add notes, you can add a sample, you can mark that this ticket came to the wrong job if that was the case. But these are the options that come up when you hit the more actions button. And then so if I just tap on the gray screen in the back, it'll close that out. You'll notice at the very top here, we're on the ticket tab, but we also have an audit log tab. So we can see when the ticket was printed, when it hit so it was printed from the plant. 4 minutes later, it hit the HaulHub server, which means that you had access to the tickets on your application out in the field, pretty much in real time there. And then it tracks that the ticket was marked delivered. It has the longitude and latitude. There's also another one for test results if this ticket was entered in to be for yield results. And then there's also photos as well too. So you can take a photo or you can upload photos that you have saved from your library. And then so all I'm doing is clicking on these different tabs up here, and you know which tab you're on because it's highlighted in purple. You can jump back over to ticket. And then in the top right-hand corner, we even have a map view here for the ticket. You can also take some more actions here as well too. So I'll hit back. That'll probably take a second to load up since I'm sharing my screen here and using some bandwidth. If I hit back, so that's one thing to also remember. If you're clicking through the application and you're looking at tickets and you're looking at raw ticket data and you just want to get back to the today page, go to the top left-hand corner, right, and hit back. Now we're back to the project details page, right? We were just looking at this ticket in detail right now. Another really cool thing that's available to you at the very top on the dashboard up here is this ticket report bubble. Some of you that are maybe a little bit more familiar with our application or have used it on some jobs might have remembered a tab called Clipboard Reports. It's been rebranded as Ticket Reports here. And so if we tap on this ticket report, it gives us a high-level overview of the project, total delivered. It'll tell you what's been rejected or if anything's been marked waste or still pending. And you'll notice that there's multiple reports here. So you can tell by these dots here at the bottom. These dots pretty much let you know that you can slide the screen. That's what they're for. Or there is the chip filter here at the top, right? So the chip filters are going to be a common thing that you see throughout our applications. Just a quick way for you to modify the data that you're looking at. So if we click on project overview, it will actually give you a full list of all those different projects, or I'm sorry, reports that are available to you. And we'll slide through them right now. So you can click on them to jump to them, or I can just tap out and I like to slide the screen. So I just slide it to the left. It's going to give me the delivery report. So if you're ever maybe a little bit confused on what the report is telling you or the information that it's sharing with you, there is this eye right here, which is an information eye right here. And basically, if you tap on it, it'll tell you what the report is for. So the delivery report is specific to showing you the breakdown of loads by trucks. There's going to be two icons that you see, right? There's the green one that shows you the check mark, which has been marked delivered. And then there also is the red for rejected. And then if you see the gray time clock, that means it's still pending. So we'll close out of this, and then we can see T1. We can see that we can tap on these as well too if we wanted some more information, so I can see the ticket. See it was marked delivered. If we want to look at the rejected one, I can tap on that one too. And we can see that. We can tap here at the bottom to take us to the raw ticket detail, right? And now we've jumped to another screen and we want to get back to that report. Again, top left-hand corner, we're just going to hit back. Now we're back to our clipboard reports. I can hit this X right here to have this disappear, and we can slide over to our next report. Load time report, right? So we can see T1 on the first round was loaded at 6:56 a.m. On the second round, 8:22, third round, 9:13. And then it left off on this is highlighted because this was the last load. We can also tap on these as well and get to the tickets. Right, so I can tap on it again. Now I'm at that raw ticket detail. I hit the top left-hand corner and I go back. And we have several other reports here. So it just kind of depends on which ones are most important to you. We can keep sliding through them. There's the round trip report, right? So it kind of gives you an idea automatically based on the loads, right? So from the first time a truck is loaded to the next time the truck is loaded, it's giving you those round times, right? We're not using GPSs or anything like that are plugged into the trucks. We're just using the load times of when they hit the plant. On the road report, in transit report, right? So these are cool. These are pretty fun. It's automated for you guys. You're not having to keep track of anything and write it on a clipboard, piece of paper, or anything like that. It's already there for you. And again, the way that I got to these ticket reports is I just interacted with the dashboard bubbles here at the top, right? So it's highlighting it in purple, letting me know that I'm on the ticket reports. If I wanted to jump back to my tickets because I have a truck approaching right now, I can hit the bubble right here. It takes me right back to my tickets. And so this is just a little overview of the dashboard when you tap into a project. I want to show you how to mark tickets delivered, how to put pay items on them, how to mark waste, but I don't want to do that in your environment. I don't want to mess up anything in your guys' environment. So I am going to switch over to one of our demo environments. Again, we're in the dashboard project review page right now. So if you ever want to just go back to that home page or what we call the today page, you just got to keep hitting this arrow and it'll take you back. Perfect. So now we're back on that today page. I'm going to bounce out and I have a super admin privilege, which allows me to bounce between different agencies. So I'm just going to switch over to our Haul Hub demo environment right here. And we're going to mark a couple tickets delivered and show you that process. So now in our demo environment, we're looking at project 12345, Highway 95. I'm on the Today chip filter, and I'm just going to tap on this project, right? So think of it, let's pretend I'm out in the field. I have a truck approaching. It's for job 12345. I tap on the project, and then it's going to show me the tickets. And it's going to show me that the ticket has not been marked delivered. And then, so what I can do from this screen right here is I can mark this ticket delivered. It's going to bring up recent pay items that have been used on this job. So once you already start using the pay items, which they'll be pre-populated for you, they'll be uploaded for you guys. It's not something that you have to upload to the system or anything like that. You just need to go in and make sure you're selecting the right ones and marking the tickets delivered. But we'll make sure they get updated for you in the system so that you have a list of pay items to choose from. As you're going through a project, as you're using pay items, it's going to keep the most recent pay items for you here at the top, right? It says recent pay items. So if those are the ones that you're using through the life of that day for the project, you don't have to keep going through the search items right here. But if you're marking a ticket for the first time delivered and you're putting pay items for the first time on the project, you will have to go and just search here, and then you can select briefly from that list. Right. You'll select the pay item and then hit select pay item at the bottom here. You can select 2 pay items and split a ticket. I'll show you how that works, but I'll just hit cancel since we already have some recent pay items right here. And if I want to use them, I'll tap on this box. Right now it's highlighted in blue, and then I can tap on this box as well too. You can see that it gave me some options here at the bottom to split it based on the pay items. So I can fill that out. I can just, I'll just do 10.003, and then we'll just put the other one for done. I can add a note quickly in the box right here at the bottom. So now I went through and I selected these 2 pay items. I split the amounts, and all I have to do is confirm delivery now. Success. I hit OK. And now I'm waiting for my next truck, load 2. It's going to be ticket ending in 744. We have the trucking information and material right here. If I wanted to add stationing information to this one, I could do that. Just tap on stationing, and then I'll tap on this box, and we can put for save that. Now it's showing right here. And maybe we want to look at the raw ticket data before we mark this one delivered. Maybe we're just curious to just take a little bit of a look at the data. So again, all we have to do is just tap on this ticket card right here. So I tap on it. Now I'm looking at the raw ticket data. And when I'm in the raw ticket data view, you'll see that I can also mark tickets delivered. And I also have the more actions button, right? So if I do tap on the more actions button, I can flag this ticket so it'll stand out in some reporting later. I can give a reason, excuse me, as to why I tagged it. All right, so now you'll see that little flag on it. It's still showing in transit because I haven't marked the ticket delivered. If I tap on more actions, you'll also see this is where you can edit inspector notes. And when you tap edit inspector notes, it'll provide you with like all these fields right here, which you can adjust, right? So if there's some fields that you're not seeing or you don't want to see, just to reduce a little bit of clutter, there is the add fields button up here. Right, so they're all turned on by default, but if any of these fields don't apply to you and you just want to remove some of the clutter from this page, you can definitely do that from the Add Fields tab right here. But as you can see, I had already entered in station, so station is showing right here. If we needed to enter in a number of waste, we can do that too, and then it'll automatically apply to the reporting at the end of the day. And then you can add any other notes if you want to that are custom. So there's a couple of different fields here, and then you just hit update. Right. So we're back on that raw ticket view because we tapped into it. We still see that it's flagged. We added waste to this one and some notes, and then we can mark the ticket delivered from this page right here in the raw ticket view. So I tap mark delivered. Still gives me that same option to add pay items. It shows that it's flagged, and I can just tap one of these. And if I'm only doing one, it gives me the option to use net, right? So I don't have to type in the amount every time. I can just hit use net. It applies the 24.26, and then we'll hit confirm delivery here at the bottom. So on this one, we added one pay item, we flagged it, we did add some stationing and some notes, and then we hit the use net to get the total, and now we're confirming delivery. Success, we hit OK. And then now it shows that this ticket has been marked delivered. I need to get back to my today page. I have another truck coming. I hit back. I got my last ticket right here. All right, so on this ticket, we can tap on this one and we can hit more actions, and maybe this one is going to be a ticket that we reject. All right, so we could hit mark rejected, and we just got to put some notes to give us a reason. And then we hit reject, and now it's been updated. So now there's no more tickets in my ticket feed. Why? Well, because the status is only changed to show me tickets that are pending, right? If I'm out there in the field, I only do want to see tickets that are pending for trucks that are approaching. But if you want to start reviewing them when you have a break or at the end of the day, if you accidentally marked a ticket delivered and you shouldn't have, that's fine. You can just use the chip filter here and filter by status. So we can just uncheck pending. We can check tickets that have been marked delivered, and maybe we want to see the tickets that have been rejected and have waste on them, right? So if we use those filters, it'll pull up the ticket information here, and we can see this is one of the tickets that has been marked delivered, and it has the stationing information on it right here. So you can always use the chip filters to go through the different statuses. If you do clear it, it'll just show everything. So I'll be able to see like, okay, this one I did mark it delivered, We do have the rejected one. So it'll show you in the right-hand corner of the ticket card. And again, still you can tap on it and it'll show you at the very top too that the ticket was marked delivered. And you can still take some more actions here. And then the audit log will be tracking kind of how I've been moving back and forth through the application. Again, I need to get back. I hit the back button. So, excuse me. At the very top, again, we have the dashboard here, right? So we have the ticket reports, right? So I can jump to the ticket reports. If I want to get back to that feed that I was just looking at, I can tap on tickets, right? Now we're back to that ticket feed. And now if we scroll over to the left, I want to show you a couple here that I feel are pretty important bubbles to remember. If you run into any issues in the field, this is the bubble that you want to go to first. You want to do this before you email us. You want to do this before you call us. This is going to be the fastest way and involve everyone that needs to be involved to help you figure out your issue. So what do I mean? Let's tap on this bubble and let's kind of go through that. All right, perfect. So what we can do here is report a new issue. So here at the bottom, there's that purple report a new issue button, which we'll go through in a second. But as we start reporting, or if we report an issue, we can track what's happening with that issue. So once it's been reported, it'll sit in this queue, and then it'll kind of go through this flow of work in progress, acknowledged, and resolved. And then you can always go back later and you can see the ones that have been reported, ones that are in progress or have already been resolved as well. So at the very bottom, we'll click report an issue. And what are the issues that maybe you would report? right? So at the very top, you'll see that there are the ones with the red star next to them, which are required for reporting an issue. And then the rest is kind of additional helpful information that you can submit if you have it. But what type of issue are you reporting? Maybe you saw a few tickets, but they stopped, right? We want you to let us know that. Maybe you're out there waiting and you don't see any tickets coming up in the application. We want to know that. You are seeing tickets, but it's not for the right job. You're getting tickets, but you're missing some of them. The tickets are coming in, but they're taking too long to come in, right? It should be a matter of minutes from once the ticket is printed at the plant that you have access to the tickets. It takes a couple of minutes, like we were showing in the audit log. It took like three or 4 minutes for them to hit the application. So you should have access to the tickets very, very early. So if you are few tickets, but they stopped. Because we were already inside of this project dashboard, it knows which project we're reporting the issue on, right? So it automatically put the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it's going to ask which suppliers are your tickets coming from or that we're looking for. So if there's multiple suppliers, you can select that. But if there's just one, we'll just tap the one. If you know the plant that you're expecting the ticket from, we'll select the plant. Name of the contractor, not required, but could be helpful. So when you're filling this out, and when you submit it, it's going to go to multiple parties. Um, so it's going to alert the supplier. The supplier, when they go through training and when we set them up, we assign someone what we call a 24/7 contact, which means when you submit one of these reports, they receive a notification within the supplier portal that we provide them with, and they also will receive a notification via email. The supplier is not the only one that gets the notification when you report this issue. Hall Hub support, we have a support team that also receives this notification. In addition in addition to our support team and the supplier being notified, I also get notified. Now, I'm often in trainings like this one where I'm helping folks get up to speed on our application. So I can't usually respond as fast as I would like to. But our support team usually responds in a matter of minutes. You'll instantly notify the supplier so they can check and see. And it might be something as simple as their internet just went down for a second at the plant and they're just rebooting their computer and getting it back up. That could be, the reason why you saw some tickets, but they stopped. Um, so everyone gets notified, right? And that allows us to take the fastest action needed. And we know exactly what project, what the issue is, what plant it is. And then again, if you want to add any additional information, it'll automatically put your phone number if you've entered in your phone number on the account settings. If not, you can enter it automatically, or if there's another person we should contact if we do need to contact somebody, you can put that phone number there. And then you're just submitting the issue, and then it's going to go into the queues, and you can see that it's been reported. And then as our support team is notified, as the supplier gets notified, it'll start going through this process of going to resolved. So again, we're back on the dashboard page, so you can see the bubbles here at the top. The way that I got to the report issue is I just scrolled. So if I go back, and so say I just reported an issue on a missing ticket and I want to get back to my home page, I can hit tickets here. It's going to take us back to that ticket feed, right? And then again, just to show you how I got to the report issue, I just slid the bubbles to the left and I have the report issue, and it does keep count of the number of issues that I've reported, right? So I can see that one issue was reported. I can see that it's still in the reported stage. And right next to report issue is the offline bubble. Now, if you're in an area that doesn't have any cell phone access or you don't have any reception, this bubble will be the first bubble that you see. And I think I just want to stop here. It looks like there was a question. The GPS Latin log is from the ticket accepting device, phone device on the project, not the actual physical delivery location where correct. So it's going to be where you are with mobile, and where you mark the ticket delivered is where it's going to capture your latitude and longitude. Thank you for asking, Caleb. Again, the report issue bubble, and I think we have another question, so let me just stop. Can specific delivery truck information be input, such as GVW or truckload max weight, to flag overweight loads? Yes. Yes, that is part of the ticket details, and it can be flagged for overweight loads. Yes. Let me see if a ticket has that in our demo environment here. One second. I don't have that field visible in my demo environment here, but I can double check and make sure. It should be showing in the North Dakota environment. I could double check for you guys after that. Yeah. So I'll hit back to get me back to the dashboard page. And then again, I'll slide these bubbles over. And so we were right at the report issue, but I was going to show you the offline mode. So if I hit offline mode, it'll ask me to enter in the last 4 digits of the ticket. I can still mark it delivered. I can still mark it rejected. I can still enter in my notes here from this page. Right, so the same notes that you would still enter are available to you. And if we scroll all the way down, and then I would hit create that ticket. When I hit create that ticket, it'll put it in pending tickets. And what that means is that it's going to hold in that queue until you get into an area that has better cell phone coverage. Once you get into the area that has better cell phone coverage, it'll connect up automatically, and then it'll go into the queue of tickets that have been sent. And if you're in an area that it has poor cell phone coverage, this bubble will actually be red. So let me actually see if I can just tap it into airplane mode to show you. So if you're in an area that has poor cell phone coverage, it'll be red, and you'll see it as the first bubble on the left-hand side. And then, so I'll just tap to turn on my cell coverage there. And if I need to get back to the ticket feed, if I need to get back to the load, I can slide all the way over, and then I can have my ticket bubble right here. So I can tap on tickets. Right, and we've already marked all those tickets delivered. So we're done for the day. We're going to get back to maybe our laptop, or we're going to be back to our desk later. And we want to pull some reports on what we did today. I can show you how to easily do that. And then we'll touch on some resources here to access for training if you need them. And then that will pretty much wrap things up. Let me just move that out of the way. And again, if you don't remember anything, e-dot.com. And I say that because when I go to e-d.com, dot.com, I can go back to the Hall Hub University where the videos were. I can go to our support to chat with somebody, or look at some of the material if you prefer to read it instead of going through the videos on Hall Hub University. And then the last tab right here in the top right-hand corner is to sign in, right? So you can sign in to the web portal, and we'll do that right now. Hit login. And I have a bunch of different options because I'm assigned a super admin role. All you all will see is the E.Agency portal. Right now, it's taking me into the admin side of things, again, because I'm assigned as an admin, but 90% of you are going to see what we call the ops portal down here in the bottom left-hand corner. So this is the ops portal. I'm signed into the North Dakota portal, and so we can see what we were looking at on mobile. It's very similar. It's just there's a little bit more real estate, obviously, on the web version, so we can add more information to these cards, right? So you can see the project information, some of the staff, tickets that have been marked rejected. I can easily jump to those. I can easily jump to tickets that have been flagged, tickets that are pending or already been marked delivered. So for example, I can hit right there. It's going to take me to this table right here. And if I click on the dates, I can go and I can see the raw ticket detail, just like I was looking at on my phone, right? So we can see the different tabs that we went through, the raw ticket data. It has the weights. I'll jump into the demo environment to show you that it'll record the pay items and the contract items, and then we still have the signature here. We can easily download a slip as well too. If we hit the download button, we can get it in a CSV PDF version, a couple of different options. I'll just hit download PDF quickly here to show you that. And then I do want to jump into the Hall Hub demo version to show you some of that reporting on the tickets that we did mark delivered. And then so now I have the PDF version here of that ticket. And then at the bottom, we have the signature and date and timestamp. So I'll jump back to the portal tab here. We'll close this. If I wanted to do a PDF of more than one ticket, I can just like choose a date, for example, and I can just hit this box. And then at the bottom, you'll see I have marked delivered as an option, marked rejected, max GVW override. I can download the slips, right? So if I download them, it takes me back to that same page. And then these filters are drag and drop. So if I wanted to filter by date and supplier, it'll do that for me too. And then if I wanted to remove a filter, I can remove a filter. Same thing on the web portal. If you ever started clicking around and you're looking at data, but you want to get back to your home page, hit back in the top left-hand corner. All right, now we're back to that home page right here. And then if we actually, we might be able to run a report actually here on this one. So let's click on this. If I click on the project card, it's going to take me to the full project dashboard page, right? So I can see that same data. It's just a little bit more expanded. Let me look at when the last time tickets were marked delivered. So yesterday on the 16th. So we can let's run a report for the 16th on tickets marked delivered here. So I'll go back. We have our reporting box right here, and we're going to pull the delivered reports. So I'll hit create report. And then what we can do is we can automatically have reports for us, delivery reports sent to you every day at the same time. If you use the auto send button, you'll choose a time and then the time frame of the tickets that you want to see, and you'll add your email. And you can add multiple emails so that anytime tickets run on this report, you'll receive this delivery report. And let me show you what that looks like, right? So you can automatically run this report to be sent to you every day at a specific time and to multiple folks. Or you can hit the manual report. And we don't have any tickets for the 17th, right? It was the 16th that we had tickets for. And then I'm just going to download this report right here. And there it goes, pulled up. So On this report, what you'll see, and let me just give it a quick little zoom. It gives you a summary of what went on the 16th, right? 6 tickets were marked delivered. There's 0 that were left pending. 2 were marked rejected. There was 0 waste there. So if we scroll down from that summary page, it'll have a breakdown of the tickets by material. It'll show you the tickets that have been marked delivered. And then it'll show you the tickets that have been marked rejected, as the date and time stamp, and then the running total here at the bottom. And then so if I hit back here, or I jump back to the portal, I can jump over really quick to the demo environment to show you those tickets too that we were just playing around with. And so I'm going to go over to the ops portal. Again, this is what 90% of you will see as soon as you log in. We're playing around with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Highway 95. Okay, high level overview of what's going on, been rejected or voided. And I'll click on that one. We jump over to the delivery report, manual, and I'll download. The best thing to do is just to set it up automated for you so that you don't have to worry about jumping in and downloading the report here like I'm doing right now, but it's pretty easy. So we were using the pay items on this one, so that's why I wanted to jump over to this one. So it shows the pay items that were being used in the summary, and then we have ticket that was marked with waste here. So it'll show up, and it shows the rejected, again, the delivered, and the date and time stamp. If I hit back here, or actually not back, but jump back to the portal. Couple other things that you'll see on the dashboard page here is some AI reporting that we have. We have the pay periods. So I showed you the option on how to take a photo. So if you are taking photos and uploading them, they'll show on the dashboard. And then as tickets are being marked delivered, this one even shows like some yield test. You will start building that digital delivery map here. And then you have the materials and the ticket types. If there was any connected equipment, like if we were tracking the pavers or the rollers or anything like that, that would show up here at the bottom of this dashboard. So again, very similar to what you see in the mobile app, just in a more expanded view. There's some other options here at the top if you wanted to see how everything looked on a map, where you can layer between looking at tickets that have been marked delivered, or maybe you just want to see those tickets that were marked rejected, and you can click on them and it'll take you automatically on this ticket tab right here. And then it opens up those tickets for you. And you can see any notes. So I'll close that. And I know that we just have a few minutes here, so I'm going to just jump back to e-dot.com. Hall Hub University. Scroll down and tap on agencies. Then we have the Inspector app basics. And then everything that we covered today. So if I tap on today page overview, you can either hit play to watch the video here, or you can go through it. I like to go through it like a slide deck. So everything that I just touched on today, like the chip filters, it'll walk you through and give you a description here of what we touched. So if you feel like you might have missed something, these are great resources to go back and just kind of flip through to make sure you have a good understanding of some of these fields here. And I'll hit back. And so again, if you go through these, it'll probably take you about 5 minutes. Let's see, I think there is another question. Is Hall Hub working on a haul sheet that meets our current specs? Currently, the contractor has to print off the certification page from their software. Then the field staff has to verify the total on the contractor's page to the ticket totals. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on that, Mark. What do you mean a haul sheet?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Um, well, our spec says that we upload a certification page that the contractor signs with the daily total, and then the engineer signs the daily total, and that's what we load up into our cars
System.
as our source document. And from what I understand right now, Haul Hub doesn't currently have that option.
Yeah, we do
So
not.
the contractors are still having to print their certification page, and then we have to go back to our tickets and verify, take off the waste, and then they have to sign it and we sign it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that verification sheet. That might be something that we can recreate like in our AI reporting. But I'd be interested to see that sheet to see if that's something that could be recreated in our system. But if it's still required by North Dakota still requires you guys to do it that way, then that probably still is the process for now. But I'd be interested to see that sheet if you'd like to send that over.
I'll see if I can
Cool.
find one.
I'll put my email in there right now. Cool. Well, I'm glad that everyone joined. It's not that hard, just if you do run into any issues, just let us know. We can help you out. Again, we're working with the suppliers very closely. We're working um, with our support team is there available to help you if you guys run into any issues. And I'm always glad to do any additional trainings, whether it's a large group like this or a small group or just a couple of folks if needed. Um, I'm glad to do that for you.
Thanks, Carlos. That was great information. Next up, we have Justin Ramsey with ETS, giving a little update on spec changes.
Thanks, Josh. Let's see if I can figure out how to share this PowerPoint thing properly here quick. Can y'all hear me okay at least?
Yes.
All right, you seeing that title page slide there, hopefully?
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks. So what I want to hit today is a couple of things. Obviously, I'm going to cover the changes to the 2024 book. Hopefully, that's what most of you guys are going to be using this summer for projects that were bid last fall. Obviously, there's some carryover stuff. There's some shelf stuff that might use an older book, but hopefully, by and large, most things are on the 24 now. The first chunk of stuff I'm going to cover is what we're starting to call targeted changes. What would have probably been called supplemental specs back in the day when we did 2014 book and then supplemented it a bunch before we started doing the annual book back in 2020. And then I'll cover changes that were made a part of our in-depth review, which were the concrete surfacing sections. So like 550, 570, those kinds of things, sidewalks, driveways, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll jump into this. First kind of big one I wanted to touch on, and one thing to keep in mind is like these aren't going to be comprehensive. I'm not going to cover every single change we made, just some of the stuff that was maybe a little bit more major, a little bit more out there as far as like what the day-to-day operations are, more common stuff, that kind of thing. Anything that I'm covering in these the targeted changes, these are going to be what show up in the book with the black bar on the side as edits there. And then obviously the stuff in the in-depth review, we swapped out those whole sections so we didn't black bar, those kinds of things. So the first one here, the waiver for certs, we updated this number based on some district feedback. That number was about 30 years old, 40 years old, probably close to that, somewhere in the mid to late 80s that we had that $5,000. So we looked at some inflationary type stuff on what projects cost now versus then, and we updated that number and where the engineer can waive the cert requirement for small dollar items essentially. Obviously this is based on, just sort of project need. It's not something we want to do a lot, but sometimes we kind of need to. And we'll look at keeping that number a little bit more up to date so it doesn't quite age 40 years the next time we maybe update that. Next one here, 302, so our aggregate base course. This is based on materials research recommendation. They wanted to match this up with some other stuff, so we changed the shale content, PI, and the fractured faces test from 10,000 tons produced to 10,000 tons placed. So now this is more of a, on the road test frequency rather than in the pit frequency by changing that phrasing up there. If anybody's got any questions as I go along here, I can't really see if someone raises their hand. So Josh, if you could jump in and let me know. I'll be happy to take a question as we're going through this, but I might not be able to see it. And then at the end too, obviously, if anybody's got anything, I can address stuff. 430, we did a few things here. One of them has to do with the personnel. These were changes again based on materials and research and Sharon's input. Keep an eye on this. I guess take a look at it, the actual language and the specs, so you're kind of clear on this. I'll just obviously these are just bullet points. Some of the stuff had to do with naming conventions and the certification process and the asphalt classes. And then we added the requirement for the engineer to provide the contractor information on the QA lab personnel. So the inverse of, we've always required the contractor to provide us with the details on the QC folks, their names, their certification status, that kind of stuff. We're doing that as a reciprocal thing now too, so that the contractor has the information on our testing crew as well, whether that's us or a consultant, obviously. Mix design, this was a new requirement. So certification asphalt mix designers are required to sign an asphalt mix design. Individuals completing the test of the materials included in the design must also be certified. So this was kind of a little obviously tied to the personnel stuff on the previous slide, but this was a change of materials and research wanted again to make sure that mix design, those mix design folks at the very front end had their certifications in a row as well. The documentation on the labs, on the mixing, we removed the requirement for the air void percentage to be on the control chart. Again, this is all stuff based on materials and research recommendations. I'm not entirely certain on the reasoning behind most of this stuff, or all this stuff, I should say. So if you've got questions on that, I guess I'd reach out to those folks and see if they can go through the thought process there. Next one here, 602, so our structure section. We added this section B. Obviously the old section B was waterproof membrane. We moved that down, but this new section B, supply AE Portland cement concrete using well-graded or optimized gradation aggregates specified in 802. I'll talk about the optimized gradation thing a little bit because that's also a new item when I get to 802. But this was done to sort of streamline some things in 602, and that has to do with this next slide. So if you recall, those of you who have worked on structures a bunch or at all, the concrete on there is just like a class AA AE3 concrete or a class AE3 concrete, and it covers like the entire structure. Well, what we're replacing that with now is these three items that you can see on the screen there: the substructure concrete, deck concrete, and then the barrier concrete. So we did this for a number of reasons. You think about how a bridge is built, those types of work are very, very different, but we're kind of paying for them all the same. So now we make it a little bit more fine-grained look at some of our bids, but it also gives us the ability to alter the way that we specify those materials in the future. So if there's a change that we want to make for the class of concrete or the aggregate size in concrete on these things, we don't have to create a whole new series of bid items to do that. We can just alter the specifications for that particular piece of the puzzle. So say we want substructure concrete, bridge and materials decide, hey, size 5 is a better aggregate for that. We can do that just in the spec without having to create a new bid item for it. So we're actually trying to do that a little bit more going forward. Some of you may be aware that we're looking at the whole bid item list and updating some things, reorganizing some stuff, eliminating a lot of outdated things. We're trying to use some of this more neutral language in that process as well so that the bid item isn't sort of your driving force in describing what the materials are in that work. The specification can do that, or a note can do that if it needs to be a note. And that way, going forward, we can have a little bit more dynamic process with updating things, like I said, without having to create new bid items to do that. So that we can transition in the future when methods or materials become updated and we don't have to reinvent the entire process and, like I said, create new bid items for not necessarily the best of reasons. More 602 stuff, removal of forms. Big thing here is highlighted. The deck slab forms used to have a different curing period depending on whether or not there was fly ash in the mix. We're changing that to just the entire curing period, and that is on the next page. So 7 days is that new single curing period. We had a 10-day for anything that included pozzolans, basically fly ash, greater than 10% content. So that's kind of the big change there. Those are two intertwined things. So if you're on a bridge using the 2024 spec book, that's kind of the new way of going about this. If you're on one using an older edition for whatever reason, it might not be the worst idea to talk about this with your contractors. And that goes for any of these changes. If something makes sense to do a change order on to help a project out, speed things up, make things better, whatever it might be, you can obviously go through that process to do a change order on a job and work through that to incorporate some of these newer specs on a project that's using an older book. Deck overlays, section 650. So what we did here was we added this language there at the end of I can't remember exact section B in the materials portion there, that basically allows the contractor to use the overlay concrete mix design for the deck concrete. So the difference between those two is the deck concrete goes up to the bottom of that overlay concrete thickness, and then there's a different mix design for the overlay concrete. It's just an easier thing for the contractor to do if they have the ability to sort of simplify their process and sort of eliminate a mix design there essentially if they choose to. And then the updated mix design for that overlay concrete, that top layer, is this new table. The old table was just a percentage of the mix. So it said, these aren't the right numbers, I'm just going to throw them out there, but like this, say cement was 15% of the mix. It would just say that. So now we've got more of a quantity-based thing for a cubic yard of concrete rather than as individual percentages where you'd have to back figure it. Now it's much more straightforward to say, okay, I need 100 cubic yards. Here's my quantities, and you don't have to sort of figure that out on the fly. Aggregate labs, 706, we added a number 8 sieve to the shaker stack. I think it was Mark Riley that pointed this out to us, that it was required for the gradation, but it wasn't required to be supplied. So it just kind of was closing a gap that we had in the specifications there for whatever reason. Pretty simple change, but obviously wanted to point out just because it is a new item when you're going through your lab review, when you're getting those things set up and delivered. Shoulder and centerline rumble strips, section 6 and section 760. We added all of this language essentially to that section, requiring the use of a drip line for rumble strip insulation. And then we've got some tolerances in there as well as contract price reduction, and then a flat out rejection if they're too far off their prescribed location. This has come up a number of times in the past. Most recently, again, just last year, and we'd kind of gone back and forth with the AGC on implementing this, and there was just some really bad sections. I want to say in the Grand Forks district last summer, where we just kind of said, we're done messing around with this. We're going to put something in the specification that hopefully gets you guys doing this better. And as far as corrective action goes, there's been some stuff done on these. Obviously, like I said, I think it was in Grand Forks where they had some issues and they did do some sort of repairs to these. We didn't want to prescribe exactly what to do because it's going to kind of depend on the situation. What fits, as we gain more experience, hopefully we never have any experience having to replace them again, but if we gain some experience on what works and what doesn't, we can look at doing a prescribed fix in the future. But for now, we kind of don't want to leave it open and have a discussion on what's best for the project, what's best for that segment of roadway, on what any corrective action might be for severely out of tolerance rumbles. 816 aggregates. The PI thing is the change here. And again, I wanted to make sure we pointed this out because it's just a little bit different on how this is calculated. If you recall or are aware that this used to be a formula that was kind of a footnote on this table for the class 5 PI. Materials and research suggested we just go to a straight percentage, a straight range of values. As you can see here, much simpler for everybody. Gets us where we need to be, and without the messing around with having to do the math on the back end. In-depth review stuff. So the sections that we did this year, you can see here on the screen, there's another slide that covers the material section, but it's what we're calling our flat work for concrete. We didn't do anything in the structures section other than those changes that you saw earlier, and that was more tangential because some of the stuff that we were doing elsewhere overlapped with that, obviously, because of the materials piece. Material sections that we covered for this, you can see here. What we did with these was we went through them here in tech services. We kind of marked some stuff up, asked some questions. We sent them out to a group of people: materials, design, bridge, obviously, even though they weren't directly involved in this one because of the materials piece. We wanted to include those guys. We've got some district involvement in those groups. I usually ask for volunteers. We've done pretty well in getting volunteers for most of these sections as we've gone through things. Sometimes we've had to twist an arm here or there to get some folks, but it's worked out well for us. And then we send these through the AGC as well. As we're doing these deep dive, in-depth review sections, we're also including the sampling and testing manual sections that are relevant for the specs, as well as design standard drawings, detailed drawings, standard and plan notes. Kind of looking at it as a holistic approach rather than just focusing on the spec book, because those things are intertwined together, as you guys all well know. The sampling and testing manual feeds off the specifications feed off the plans feed off the specifications. It's a symbiotic relationship between all three of those things, and they need to work together. So we want to make sure that if we're changing something in one, we make the appropriate changes in the other so that we don't have conflicts. So that's kind of what we're doing on those. I'll talk about what the future is going to look like on that here at the end. But as far as these in-depth review sections, some of the changes, 155 and 650, we moved the mobile mixers for deck overlays to 650. Obviously, that's the only section that's utilizing that piece of equipment. And we just kind of did that because it's easier to use that way. You don't have to flip back and forth if you're using a paper copy yet between 650 and 155. If you're on a mobile device with the electronic book, it's all right there in front of you. You don't have to try and jump back around if you're trying to figure out, whether that equipment is compliant or not. 550, some materials changes, the optimized gradation. Like I said, I'll cover that here in a little bit when I get to 802. As a choice for the contractor, we clarified the water cement ratios based on that aggregate gradation that's chosen when you're slip form paving. And then we relocated the collet for the dowel bar coating. It used to be buried in 550-04 as far as the release agent on the dowel bars. So we moved it up to material section where it makes more sense. The other changes, so the construction requirements section in 550 was heavily re-outlined for readability and to try and match the work sequence of stuff a little bit better. So take a look at that closely. Stuff might not be exactly where you think it is or where you remember it being in the sequence of operations in there. The maturity method, we pulled that out. That wasn't being utilized by most of our districts. I think only 3 out of the 8 were doing that as kind of a baseline thing. So it'll be a SP when requested for projects. So if you're designing a job or you're working on a job with a design team, make sure you let us know if you want that maturity method to be part of a job. We removed all reference to CRCP construction. Obviously, that's not something we're really doing anymore. It crops up every now and again as like a cost thing to look at it, but it never comes out as the cheaper method, obviously, because of the steel. So we just pulled out of there. And then we added a cold weather paving section, which I will cover here. So this cold weather paving section came from some district comments. Obviously, this is a couple, 3 years back. We had a really early set in winter that impacted a lot of jobs, and kind of realized that this wasn't as robust as it probably should be in the specification as far as what the contractor should do when the temperature starts dropping there in the fall, or even in the early spring if we're doing some concrete work. So it requires them to submit a paving plan when the forecast air temp is below 40 during the 72-hour cure period, and that's obviously for the job site location. You get to some rural areas, you might not have as super site specific, but we got to do the best we can with that. And then we do include some minimum requirements on what should be included in the plan. I didn't paste the whole spec in here because it would have taken like 3 slides to get it in here. And I really just want you guys to go take a look at it and read it without me having to recite it at you or having you try and read it here in the time that the slide's up. An engineer has the discretion to accept the plan or to request modifications. And then obviously in the back end of that, if the contractor is not following the plan as they put it together, we've got the ability to say, hey, you're not putting down any more material until you get your stuff together on making sure that we're following the paving plan that we've put together for this climate situation. CPR work, again, re-outlined for readability and for the work sequence. Again, we removed the CRCP stuff. We know that there's some sections out there that are still CRCP. I think Dickinson and Bismarck have a little bit. Maybe Grand Forks does too yet. I can't remember exactly what district still had some segments. But if there's a need to do concrete pavement repair on those sections, we would issue a special provision for that. So a lot of times those kind of plans get developed in the district. So if that's something that does come up where you're going to do some CPR work on an older CRCP section, please let us know. And we will work with you guys on getting an SP put together that covers the needs for that job. Curb and gutter and sidewalks, we added a fogger to the equipment section to be a reference. That's been up in the 150s for a while, and it's just a way to sort of keep things from drying out on those hot, windy days before we can get things properly cured and covered if we need to. It's not necessarily something we want to do, but we needed to kind of have the option. So we built that in a while back and just kind of left out of some of these side sections, I guess I'll say, of concrete pavement. We created an aggregate for concrete section of the materials because the changes we made in 802. That section will allow in the contractor's choice the size 3 coarse aggregate, well graded or optimized. And again, like I said, I'll cover how those aggregates work in a little while here. We added the cold weather placement requirements. They are slightly different than 550 just because the nature of this work is different. So we wanted to talk about it a little bit differently. So that's not a reference or anything like that back to 550. It's its own section. It's not even a reference from 750 to 748. It's just the text in those sections they stand on their own. So they are a little bit different. So I guess the reason I point that out is, make sure when you're working on curb and gutter sidewalks versus mainline paving, that is a little bit different if it does get to that cold weather concept. They're basically the same. There's just some different things in there as far as timing goes. Okay, 802. This was really heavily re-outlined. We tried to put things together that made more sense together in there. The flow of it was kind of weird when you started looking at how the mixed design stuff worked versus the material sections, or what was the new material section that we created in there. So hopefully that works better for everybody as far as the readability thing. We did eliminate the accelerated strength, the ASC designation. If we have a need for a rapid set concrete, we want to work with the materials division going forward. We had high early in there. Obviously, that technology's changed, so we kind of came up with this ASC thing that lasted for a few years. We really want to do this smart rather than by spec. So that's why we kind of pulled this out so that we can do it in an intelligent way based on the project conditions, based on the need, and figure out what it might work best for that particular job. So that's why this is set up this way now. So again, if you've got a project where that's something that's desired, whether it's being designed in the district or it's being designed with the design team in central office or consultant, we'll have to go through that special provision process. Essentially, is how we'll be treating that, I would assume, on anything that needs a rapid set. So more on the 802 stuff. We eliminated size 4 aggregate. Nothing was using that, so we just took it out. There's no point in having vestigial specs that don't apply to anything. So we got rid of that. We added the optimized gradation. I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. We deleted 808 admixtures completely from the book. Obviously, that only applies to concrete work. There's never a reason that would be referenced in a different section besides this. So we just folded it in here. And again, that's for ease of use, readability, that kind of a thing. And then additional admixtures are now included that may be used without making requests. So in the past, we had some basic admixtures that could be included without a question to the project engineer. We've added a couple more things to that list. Take a look at it when you get a chance on what those are and what their purposes are. And there were some. I thought I wrote this down, but maybe I got it on a future slide. But if I don't, just take a look at that and then take a look at and see what's allowable in their mix design process when you're reviewing mix designs. Aggregate classifications. So this used to be a couple of different tables in the spec book. I think 3 actually, and we kind of combined everything into one. Obviously, you got rid of the 4. There's some text that goes along with this. It says when you're using the size 3 and the size 5 coarse aggregates gradation, you also have to include the fine aggregate as part of it. That's obviously been the case for forever. And then the optimized is the new one. So this came from materials and research. One thing I'd want to point out is the difference there is percent retained on the sieves versus the percent passing on the sieves. So if you have a contractor that decides to do this, we have to keep in mind that the reporting is going to be a little bit different. So materials and research, it's tarantula curve is something that's kind of associated with this, I believe. It's a better gradation for our high-end concretes. And that being said, this will probably be required on certain projects where a plant is set up specifically for that job. So like our rural interstate reconstructions where they bring out a dedicated plant and are essentially creating aggregate for that project rather than coming from a ready mix plant that's kind of a permanent location. And again, this is just something that's improving with the times on concrete. This allows for less cement to be used as well and still getting our, the strength that we desire. That tying back to the 550 stuff with the different water cement ratios that we had to incorporate was because of this. Less cement means our water cement ratio gets a little bit weird in certain situations. So we had some tweaks there to make sure that all matches up. Like I said, right now this is an option in most of our flat work situations. It's not in the bridge stuff at all yet. But right now it's optional and it probably will be part of the materials recommendation for materials and research on some projects going forward. I don't know if there's any for 2024 or 2025 construction season, but in the future I would guess that there will be. That kind of covers what we've done for the in-depth reviews this year. Again, I didn't hit everything. I just hit the major stuff. So take a look at those sections if you're working on projects that have those specs. Refamiliarize yourself with the content there because it can be different than it was in the past. Upcoming stuff, the 2025 book, which we're in the process of finalizing. Our in-depth stuff was the erosion control section. So those 250 to 280-ish, as well as the standard drawings, like I said, notes, details, that kind of stuff. So that'll be coming for the next edition. We're working on traffic control right now, both temporary and permanent for the 2026 book, as well as fencing and then the right-of-way mailbox sections because we didn't really have another good spot for those, and some of the contractors do the same kind of work. 27 is our bridge and hydraulic sections. We're going to start working on those soon. And then 2028 will be the general provision section 100. That'll get us through, based on what we've done the last few years. Everything in the book will have an in-depth review by 2028 edition, except for the asphalt surfacing section, so 400s. And that's because there's been a lot going on with those. We didn't really feel like it was going to fit in here because we're doing a lot kind of along the way with those. Those of you who have been involved in our HMA user producer group with the AGC and some of our internal discussions on those understand, and even some of you that have been on those asphalt projects understand that there's been a lot of moving parts, especially in 430 on that stuff. So we kind of held it off for putting it on the list. But when we get to 2029, this will flip back over. So the very first one that we did was earthwork. And we're going to start again with that one in 2029. But then 2030 will be our in-depth updates for the asphalt sections, the 400s, as well as the associated material sections, obviously. That's all I have. If anybody's got any questions on what I presented, anybody's got any questions on timing of some of this stuff, what have you, I'm happy to take them. I think I got a few minutes left here before I'm up at 10:30.
There's one comment, Justin. Please expand on aggregate gradation type required for section 602 and 550. Is it required to be either well graded or optimized? Or can the contract choose to do GAP at any time?
So for 550, it's an option for them to, like, what am I missing here? Oh, okay, I see what happened. So for 550, we added the optimized gradation as a choice. So it was basically they'd have a choice between optimized and the well graded. We've been doing well graded in 550 for a number of years now. We didn't want to change that. Unless, like I said, Materials and Research puts out a recommendation to do the optimized grade or the optimized gradation, in which case we run a plan note that says utilize the optimized gradation. 602, we did not put in that option. So 602 what the spec says for 602, it says provide a class AE3 concrete for these three things. I thought I had that in. Yeah, okay, so here. Oh, we did put the option in there for that. That's my bad. I read that wrong. I apologize. So 602, we did give them the option as well. I would assume that in most cases, we're still going to get well graded just because that optimized is going to be a little bit more expensive to produce. The reason that we put it in as options in those other sections like 750 or 748 is, or even in this section, I guess for that matter, is if there's a project that has, a mainline section where we're requiring them to use the optimized gradation, they might just choose to use that for everything else to limit their mixed designs and limit their crushing operations and things like that. So that was the kind of the reason behind putting the options in the other spots. By spec, it's optional for everything. But like I said, there might be some instances where Materials and Research said, hey, we want to do this because of the project location and the plant situation. Does that answer the question? I don't know who asked that, obviously, but if you want me to go further into that, I certainly can, or I can say, go talk to Tyler.
Justin, Kurt Dunn here.
Yeah.
If there's a project, say a 2024 project, and you have concrete pavement repair items on it, and say the contractor was requesting to maybe use a different mix, maybe a quicker curing mix for the spalls, and we wanted maybe to suggest the ASE, what process would we have to go through to do that? Would it have to be a change order, or?
I thought we had a specific mix for 570 for that kind of stuff. But I could be, yeah, I'd have to look at that specifically, but I mean, yeah, obviously, that's still in the old books. So if there's something under the 2024, and that's what you guys wanted to do, yeah, it'd have to be a change order, obviously, to allow for, an off-spec mixed design. Or approve. I suppose you could technically approve it as part of the regular mixed design process if it still meets the other requirements, but does both things.
Yeah, sometimes sorry, I didn't interrupt you there. But
no, if you wanted to be creative with your solution, I guess is kind of what I was just going to say. But
yeah, sometimes they want to maybe specify a mix they're using somewhere else in another state or something, but we don't necessarily maybe want them to use that, but we'd like them to use the, you know, the ASE. So I guess
Right.
that's, you know, but anyway, that's so, okay. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Kurt. Thanks for the question. Anything else?
Nope, I think that's it. Thanks, Justin.
well- I appreciate the opportunity to go through some of this stuff with you guys. And if you have any questions, you know, this summer, or as always, reach out, let us know what's working, what's not, what needs clarity. We'll take care of it. Thanks, Josh.
Perfect. Yep, thanks to you. Thanks, Justin. Next, we have John Collado with design, gonna discuss some supplemental design data for surfaces. You can see your screen, John, but it might be muted if you're trying to speak at all.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet.
Good morning. Yeah, I'll be touching base on supplemental design data. I'll be covering what we do with our models in design division and how we communicate them to the contractor. Be focusing on development and limitations. I'll be putting these notes into the chat after my presentation here, so hopefully you can use these resources. But we had a lot of information out there, and this presentation points to a lot of the resource files. From the designer's perspective, they post the information using this guide basically here, where to go. It's out on the MFT site, typically formatted, you know, under DOT engineering and supplemental bid information by the year it's being bid and the job number. And drill into it. This is basically an example of specific projects. The job number now is exactly the same thing as a PCN number, but this is typically where the supplemental design data is posted for the contractor. Got some just general guidance, people who are new to this. Got a special username for the MFT site and a special password for the contractor. This password is just a read-only password, so they shouldn't be able to edit that information, but should be able to get access to copy all that information out. Now, as far as reviewing the supplemental design data, I do have some videos and a presentation on that. We have a guide of how to check the supplemental design information out there. This guide is basically written for design section leaders. You know, how do I check other people's supplemental design data, and how do I judge the quality of their
Give me a second here,
supplement?
Scott.
Their question or this guide is used to yeah, just walk through the supplemental designer from the aspect of a roadway design section leader. Districts could use this guide, you know, to review the supplemental design information, but it is a little bit technical. It's a little bit more than just MicroStation. You do need to know Open Roads Designer, so it's helpful if you've been through that training. There are some videos there, about 50 minutes of videos. It's under the S Support How To SSD review. So that's how we would typically review those videos, is go to that folder and you could watch those videos. I think they were done back in 2023. Most of it is still pretty current. In our CAD standard manual, under section 2.14, we have the final plan delivery part of supplemental design data. And that covers, what a designer should be putting out there as far as supplemental design data. Obviously, you do need an advertisement for the e-plans, just letting people know that there is supplemental design data. And these are typically the files that need to be out there for the supplemental design data. There are other parts to the supplemental design data. If there's a section 82 in the plans, there might also be a survey CSV file that the surveyors can import. Maybe some old bridge or soils reports are also in the supplemental design data, but I'm going to focus on the modeling part. We kind of broke out the AA README file for the supplemental design data. Some of this was boilerplate. Oops. The AA README file should still have an alignment key. Hopefully you guys don't have to guess what alignments, what they're named. This should describe what alignment is used for what set of cross sections, what set of PP sheets. There should also be some description about modeling limitations. That's one concern. What can I use this for? What did they not model? There should be some discussion in the AA README file for the modeling limitations in there. And when in doubt, if you have a question, I encourage you just contact the designer and say, did you do this bridge embankment? Did you do this approach? What intersections were modeled? That type of thing. Just to ask if it isn't clear. As I mentioned, we broke out this AA README file. We do have a standard boilerplate. This is basically CAD standards. If you're new to the CAD standards, kind of gives an explanation of what a control file is, a design file. What are the drawings? What's in the drawings? Just kind of an overview of some of the CAD files. There's an emphasis on some of the prefixes used. T for top surfaces, B1 for base 1 surfaces. On complicated projects, you might have multiple base surfaces. You might see a B2, B3, and then the dirt grade surface. And then just some basic explanations. One of the changes that we did quite a while ago is we don't have the detailed earthwork calculations in the plans anymore. We have the summaries in the plans, but if you want the details, the actual details that the designer used, it should be included in the supplemental design data. And it's typically a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. Now, one of the things that might be new to people who are familiar with our old software is ORD is a model-centric workflow. And what that means, or the best way to explain that is maybe contrast to the way we used to do some of our surfaces in our older softwares. We would develop the cross sections, and then we would develop our break lines and our surfaces from the cross sections. With the Open Roads Designer software, everything comes from the model. So we have to do the model first and then develop the cross sections. We do the model first and then we develop our break lines and surfaces. So it's model centric. If you need to change a cross section, you can't just go into the cross section and, you know, edit it like you do a typical section. You have to change it in the model. With our roadway design model files, if you typically look at a supplemental design data, it'll be there's usually numerous roadway design models in there, and they're pieced together, they're referenced together. So you might have one for mainline, you might want to have one for approaches, you might have one for side streets. It's typically pieced together. It's not like there's just one model file. They're typically referenced together. So I'm going to go over a couple modeling terms. They kind of get referenced out in the field, so I just want to clue people in who aren't familiar with the Open Roads Designer. We use corridor templates when we do our modeling, and they're basically typical sections that are used to tie to the alignment to build our models. They actually look similar to our typical sections. Basically, you have like a backbone components, things that don't change, but you also have what we call end conditions, and those are decisions with those typicals. In this example here, you see all kinds of end conditions for the inslope, whether it's a ditch with a 3-to-1 slope versus a ditch with a 4-to-1 slope, or inslopes with a compound inslope, 3-part inslope, 2-part inslope, and a 1-part inslope. Those are called end conditions. And typically there's only one branch used per section. Within these templates, we have specific cross-section points. And these points have multiple uses. They're used in labeling. These are specific points that get labeled, and they turn into specific break lines for the surfaces. And in this example, I know it's a little bit small, but I'll put this document in the chat after we're done. But there's points in here, like T edge of lane 1 left, and B1 edge of lane 1 left, and DG edge of lane 1 left. These are points that are used for labels, but they turn into break lines in the model. And those break lines are used to generate surfaces. So some of the limitations that are involved with the supplemental design data is one of the biggest ones that I see is just the level of review. Ideally, I'd like to do these reviews during PS&E, but that really isn't feasible at this time. And part of it is it requires an understanding of certain CAD applications. It's a little bit more than just MicroStation. You need to know a little bit about Open Roads Designer. Some of this you can do in Trimble Business Center, but there is a little bit of a limitation in there as far as understanding the CAD applications. Another limitation would be just the workflow order. Typically, the main focus for the designer is plan development, and that involves the cross section. So during that PS&E time, the whole focus is finalizing cross sections and getting your earthwork quantities. But during that time, there's also potential for doing a little bit more remodeling, and the supplemental design data that can be done just about the time you are submitting final plans. This is this is one of the last things that are done. It's supplemental design data, so it's not front and center, and there are some concerns with that. Sometimes after the model or after the plans have been submitted, or actually the cross sections have been created, there may be some tweaks. They may involve feature definition changes, additional key points, things to improve the surface. And if all works out well, it shouldn't be a problem, but sometimes it doesn't work out so well and there's complications. Here's an example of a curb and gutter, and I'm pulling this up just to emphasize some of the editing that might happen. Might be some curiosity. Why do you have to edit the model after your cross sections are done? As I mentioned earlier, there's prefixes on these points, and it's very literal. If you happen to drop a point down with the wrong feature definition, it's going to affect your surface. So if this is my base surface and I accidentally have a DG feature in there or a T feature in there, it's going to screw up my base surface. So there occasionally are times where people need to change a point, which shouldn't affect the cross section, shouldn't, you know, it shouldn't affect the earthwork. It's just important to create a proper surface. Another thing that might happen is vertical lines are a challenge when you create a surface. You want it to trace the surface in a way that makes sense. Sometimes when you have vertical lines in a surface, it causes a spike. Maybe a triangulation goes wrong. Maybe it goes from one point, you know, it might go from this point to this point to this point to this point to this point. You know, you want it to trace it on the bottom surface. In this example, if you wanted to generate a dirt grade surface. And the way sometimes the model is edited to clean up the surface is we may go into the surface and tweak some of these points ever so slightly. So like in this example, this dirt grade point might be at a 27-foot offset. And in order to get it to trace left to right, we might change some of these other points to be 26.99 feet offset. We might move it just 100th, and we might move this point 200ths of a foot over. It's a really small distance. It's enough for the application to know how to trace the surface, that I want to use this point, I want to use this point, I want to use that point. It helps set the left to right tracing to work for your surfaces. And there may not be any reconciliation with the actual cross sections. We say, well, I just moved this 200th of a foot horizontally. It's not going to affect my quantity. It's not going to, I'm not going to need to regenerate the cross section. Now that's if everything is, you know, done as planned. Obviously, if you do it, if you might do something that has unintended consequences. Like maybe you're only trying to move this 200ths of a foot. You might accidentally move it 2/10ths of a foot, and that would cause a problem. So there is editing after the final cross sections are completed, and typically that isn't a problem, but I have seen that in the past where people didn't think it was a big deal and it turned out to be a big deal. One of the things that is coming up with digital delivery is the way people are using the CAD information. For the cross sections, originally the cross sections, you know, they were meant to be viewed at a certain scale, like 20 feet per inch. And really it was about, getting a good quantity. And now that we're going to digital delivery, people are zooming into the cross sections. They're looking at different scales. They're using dynamic scales, much smaller than what you would see on paper. And they're looking at the details, saying, how is this slough done? How is this pavement transition done? And sometimes that's covered in the model, and sometimes it isn't. So the models can be extremely detailed, but they might not be. There might be some assumptions done in there, thinking like, oh, I just need to get a good quantity, assuming people aren't going to zoom in, and see something, as long as it looks good at 20 scale, maybe that's all that counts. But we're getting into more details now. Some things that might not be covered, I just listed a laundry list here of things that came to mind, but surface thickness transitions, things that were typically handled in the field. Now people are asking for, I want that transition modeled. Whether it's around approaches or intersections or just, a side street. Shaping around the culverts. People are getting into more details around the approaches, pipe backfill, subcuts, ditch blocks. ADA ramps, that's a big one. That's on my plate. We're getting to the point where every joint on the sidewalk needs to be modeled and designed specifically. Same thing with bridge embankment. We used to just throw quantities at some of these things, and now we have specific models. And the last thing I wanted to just highlight is just an example of some supplemental design data, just to drive home that when you look at this, the standards manual, the standards manual, references like it's just one set of cross sections. Here's an example of some supplemental design data. It actually hasn't been posted to the MFT, but it just shows that, there is more than one set of cross sections. In this case, there's more than one alignment file. The surfaces are parsed out, for like the base surface. There may be multiple base surfaces that are referenced together. This one actually has a second base surface, dirt grade surface. The point here is I just wanted to emphasize that it's just not one file for the surfaces. But like I said, I will post this into the chat. Are there any questions or comments? Try that again. I am having difficulty pasting this in here. Well, if anybody needs this presentation, just send me an email. I can send it to you. Just having a hard time pasting it in here. Well, thank you.
Thanks. Yep, thanks, John. You could probably just send me a copy of it and I can attach it with everything else that I
Okay.
sent out at the end of the trainings. But thank you. Next week we have Williston and Moore Engineering for our final week. Thanks, everyone.